Sam Bradshaw, one of the nicest people we have every week on this show. Some of the other ones are just bad animals. Sam Bradshaw joins us, S11 on the site, also on Twitter. And Sam, Baylor and Oklahoma, tendencies, trends, etc., matchups. Let's start with Baylor. Same formula that they had against Texas Tech. Does that work again in Norman?
Thanks for having me on. And there's a lot of similarities in what Tech tried to do and what Oklahoma's going to do. Oklahoma's just a lot better running the ball. So it's going to be a bigger challenge for that Baylor defensive front. And Baylor put a lot of things on film, as Aranda mentioned, throughout the week. So Oklahoma's going to have a little bit better answer for it coming in. So how well they adjust to that is going to be very telling. I think this game, at least on the defensive side, comes down to no blown coverages. But more importantly, when you have your front five against five blockers, can you hold up in the run? Iowa State was able to do it, and they slowed that offense down to a crawl. If Baylor can do it, I really like their chances. And that's what they were able to do to Texas Tech throughout the entire first half.
Sam, both offenses, Texas Tech and Oklahoma, run spread concept, go, Briles kind of offenses. What are the differences? Because Baylor really availed itself well last week against Texas Tech in that kind of offense, but Oklahoma's a different team.
Right. Texas Tech, they are an air raid team, so a lot of their passing concepts are more drop-back concepts, and they'll get the ball out quick, and they'll definitely make use of a Briles-style screen game and some of the same running concepts, blocking scheme-wise. They'll do a little bit of that, but their downfield passing is a little more developed. But with Oklahoma, it's a lot more RPO and downhill run. And they've mixed in some things since the Briles days with a lot more post-wheel concepts and a few other crossing route concepts that really weren't a big focus during the big run that they had at Baylor when Levy was in Waco. And probably more so of the old school Briles scheme than what we saw from Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. So you're going to have a lot more wide splits, even though they will do some condensed formations and some formation into the boundary. But it's probably the closest thing to the old Baylor offense that Baylor will have faced since they faced Texas in 2016.
Sam, it's a bit off topic, but not really because we're talking about that offense. Have you watched much Tennessee, and would you have any way to compare it to what we watched for Waco in so long, other than it being pretty much the same thing? And just your thoughts on what Heupel and Tennessee are doing right now.
Well, what Heupel and Tennessee are doing, I haven't seen too much of Tennessee just with so much of the previews that I do for the site. I'm really focused on the Big 12. But if it's anything of what I saw from him at UCF, it's a lot of Briles-inspired stuff. Because, he did hire Levy for a while there at UCF, and he really reinvented himself after getting fired from the Oklahoma offensive coordinator position. And a lot of it was mimicking what he saw Baylor doing at the time. And so it would not shock me at all if you have a whole lot of carryover from what Baylor was doing in Tennessee, because it was certainly there at UCF.
Yeah, I was just curious how much you had seen. All right, so going back to last week, there was a lot to like, but what impressed you most?
What impressed me most defensively is that the coverage was sound. There weren't any major gaps. I mean, they had one seam route get like 30-something yards early in the game. But apart from that, there really weren't any major gaps in the pass coverage. And there was a stretch kind of in the middle of the second half where they weren't all that sound getting their run fits against Tech, and Tech was able to get the run game going a little bit against them. But really defensively, that's it, other than a couple late hit penalties. That's outstanding against an offense that had ripped Oklahoma State up and had also gone in and absolutely humiliated West Virginia. And that's an offense that converted fourth down after fourth down with, in my opinion, one of their less performing quarterbacks against Texas and beat Texas. So that was a decent team you just went out and beat. I mean, despite some turnovers, they gave a good NC State team a game. They were only put away by K-State late. And Baylor went in a very hyped environment and took control from them. And that was a solid Tech run defense that they ran all over.
Well, and that's my question about what we saw defensively with 8 TFLs, 6 sacks, 5 turnovers, and just constant, just 6 passes defended. I don't know if we could say we could expect that when the season began, but isn't that kind of what we thought we'd see more of?
To an extent, you'd think you'd see a little bit more of that. They did open up some of their pressure playbook a little bit more, but a lot of it was they're rushing 3 or 4, and those guys are getting pressure. Those guys are forcing the quarterback off his spot. And for a young guy like Morton, who had shown a lot of promise, that was something he really hadn't had to deal with a whole lot, because the one team with the comparable D-line he would have faced, Oklahoma State, was running very different coverages, which allowed him to kind of get the ball out a little quicker and not have to deal with it to the extent that he did against Baylor. So, I mean, that's a lot of what you're hoping to see, and you're hoping you can do the same thing against Oklahoma, because that offense is absolutely legit. As long as Dylan Gabriel's been in there, they've moved the ball well on everyone. Now, they had a game and a half there where he was out, and their offense slowed to an absolute halt. And they actually had to break out the wild bear that you saw against Texas and North Carolina back in 2015. That's what they basically ran against Texas for the vast majority of those plays in the Cotton Bowl. So with Dylan Gabriel behind center for them, they are a very different team. And only Iowa State's really been able to slow them down. And they did it by stopping the run with relatively few guys.
Sam, the pass rush was excellent last week. What do you attribute to the light coming on there?
Well, part of it is they were able to do it with limited guys against the Texas Tech offensive line that lost 3 of their best guys from last year. And while they plugged the holes, they really haven't been what anyone would consider a dominant unit. It's a solid enough unit. They can take advantage of you in the run game if you give them some numbers and you play a little sloppy. They can do a good enough job in protection to let them get the ball out quick. They were just not a match for Baylor. So how much of it is Texas Tech struggles against what Baylor tries to do, and how much is Baylor? I think the Oklahoma game will give us a pretty good idea of that.
How big of a loss is Drake Dabney, and your thoughts on Kelsey Johnson and how he can help offset some of that loss?
I have a lot of confidence in Kelsey Johnson. I think he's going to come in and play well, and schematically they'll be able to do a lot of what they were able to do with Drake. But anytime you lose an experienced, capable blocker and receiver with the size and strength that he has, but also the mobility he has, it hurts you. There's definitely going to be some drop-off, although I'm still confident they'll be able to move the ball on basically anybody they play.
Sam, where does the shape into Hal Presley throw and catch rank up there in the most impressive plays you've seen this season from this offense?
That was an incredible catch, and you've been waiting for somebody to step up at the outside receiver spot. You knew you had Monterey in the slot, and you knew that Gavin Holmes could play a little bit inside, a little bit outside, but to have Hal Presley also step up there, that was huge. And several guys came in and made some big plays, because Tech, they will happily give you man coverage to try and disrupt you and get you off the field, so their offense can go back, go for it on 4th down 100 times, and never let you get the ball back until they've scored again. So being able to just break that man coverage and consistently do that to them, where they get you to 3rd down, you convert that way, or you can do it on 4th, either way. And then they've got to go back and they've got to watch you run that toss play. They got to watch you run wide zone. And it was a missing piece that absolutely helped keep Tech off balance all night.
Sam, I asked Grayson earlier, and we've even asked a couple of others, but it appears as if Khalil Keith and his arrival, they missed him a great deal, even though others were trying to fill his spot when they could, but they seem to miss him. And how much do you see on tape him making a huge difference or not?
Khalil's been playing really well. I don't think he's back to what he was before the injury, but even what he is right now is absolutely good. And he's given in the offense a good shot in the arm. Gavin Byers has played well in his absence, but there's a clear upgrade here, and the offense is making a big benefit from it.
Hey, man, thank you very much, Sam Bradshaw. Enjoy the weekend, Sam. We appreciate it. Back to having you when we can on Fridays is always great. Sam Bradshaw, SL.